The federal courthouse in Washington, D.C. was a fortress of tension that morning. Satellite vans lined the street outside, journalists clustered in tight packs with microphones ready, and cameras pointed toward the heavy wooden doors as though they were about to open on a blockbuster premiere. But this wasn't Hollywood. This was real, raw, and political. The trending name across every network and every social feed was the same: Jasmine Crockett. This wasn't just another hearing. On one side of the looming clash stood Judge Beryl Howell, a jurist known across the Capitol for her unflinching discipline, her razor-sharp command of the law, and her zero-tolerance approach to disorder. On the other side sat Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, a firebrand representative, famous for her electrifying speeches, sharp retorts, and a refusal to be intimidated, whether by political opponents or by institutions themselves. Inside, the courtroom was already packed to capacity. Wooden benches creaked under the weight of reporters, analysts, and onlookers who had managed to slip through the tight security. Every pen was poised, every tablet glowing, every pair of eyes wide with anticipation. Something extraordinary was about to unfold. The case had already been brewing controversy for weeks. Opponents accused Crockett of misusing campaign funds for personal gain, lavish events, questionable travel, and what prosecutors suggested were indulgences inconsistent with campaign activity. Crockett, for her part, insisted she was being targeted in a political witch hunt designed to silence her voice. The assignment of Judge Howell only intensified the drama. She was not the sort of judge who entertained theatrics. She was methodical, stern, and intolerant of political posturing inside her courtroom. Everyone knew today would not be ordinary. When Judge Howell entered and took her seat at the bench, her face betrayed nothing. Cold, unreadable, with one sharp crack of the gavel, the buzzing room dropped instantly into silence. "This court is now in session," she declared, her voice firm and commanding. Across the room, Jasmine Crockett sat upright at her counsel's table. Her attorneys flanked her, but she radiated an energy that made it clear she didn't intend to let the lawyers do all the talking. She looked composed, but her eyes burned with the same defiance that had made her a standout in Congress. The prosecution opened, holding up folders of documents and speaking in precise, almost clinical tones. They alleged that Crockett had signed off on checks that directly paid for luxury accommodations and personal excursions, expenditures they argued had no connection to her campaign. Judge Howell's gaze shifted toward Crockett. "Congresswoman Crockett, please remain quiet while the prosecution presents its arguments," she instructed. But Jasmine was not built for silence. She leaned forward, her voice cutting through the courtroom like a spark in dry tinder. "With all due respect, Your Honor, these accusations are baseless and politically motivated." The room erupted in hushed murmurs. Pens scratched furiously across notepads. Reporters' eyes widened. This was exactly the soundbite they had been waiting for. Judge Howell's stare hardened. "Congresswoman, this is not the House floor. This is my courtroom. If you interrupt again, I will have no choice but to consider sanctions." The word hit like a hammer. Sanctions. Rarely did a federal judge issue such a warning to a sitting member of Congress. The threat carried weight, and everyone knew it. Outside, news networks instantly plastered the words across their chyrons. Judge Howell warns Crockett. Silence or sanction. Unprecedented clash in federal courtroom. Crockett didn't flinch. She glanced at her attorney, then at the packed gallery of journalists and spectators. Slowly, deliberately, she allowed the corners of her mouth to lift into the faintest of smiles, as if to say, "You have no idea what's coming next." The prosecution pressed on, outlining 3 specific checks they claimed were misused. One for a personal trip, one for accommodations at a luxury hotel, and another for what they alleged was a purely private gala. Bank records, they said, were indisputable. Judge Howell skimmed the documents, then looked directly at Crockett. "Congresswoman Crockett, do you deny authorizing these transactions?" All eyes swung to her. "I do not deny signing the checks, Your Honor," Crockett said evenly. "But I strongly deny the intention behind these accusations. Every expense was campaign-related, and I will prove it." The courtroom gasped collectively. It wasn't just her words, but the steel in her tone, the certainty, the refusal to yield. Judge Howell's patience thinned. She slammed her gavel once, sharply. "This is not a political rally. If you attempt to turn my courtroom into a stage for speeches, I will not hesitate to hold you in contempt. But in Crockett's eyes, there was a spark, a glint that suggested she had walked into this room already prepared for a fight. The battle lines were drawn. The judge had issued her warning. The congresswoman had made her defiance clear. And the press, the public, the entire political establishment, were waiting to see what would happen next. It was only the first hour of proceedings, and already, the courtroom felt less like a legal forum and more like an arena.